listening to the Metal Command Podcast.
Greetings and welcome back to another edition of the Metal Command Podcast. Tony here with you. Really excited, of course, to be here with everybody today. And if you do want to support this program, by all means, hit the subscribe button, like this video, share the video, leave a comment, and hit that little bell to be notified anytime I do post any kind of content. Today's show, I have an interview with myself and Ralf Scheepers from Primal Fear. Primal Fear, of course, a longtime favorite band of mine. Ralf, of course, has come on my show numerous times over the years, especially when I was doing the radio show. And now we get to talk about their brand new album coming out September 5th, 2025. So with that being said, here's the interview with myself and Ralf Scheepers. Check it out and enjoy. Hey, everybody. Welcome back to the Metal Command Podcast. Tony here with you. And today I am joined by a guy that has sang in the band Primal Fear since the very beginning in the late 90s, someone who has come on this show on a multitude of occasions, and also was the first singer in Gamma Ray. I sang on an album with him and had to follow up with him. And, of course, a badass in the gym, Mr. Ralf Scheepers. It's great to have you on, my friend.
Hello, Tony. Good to have you again. Good to be with you again. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, awesome. So we have another album coming out, and I'll just start off by saying this: the album's a little different for me because you have a lot of very big choruses in it. You know, when you listen to the singles are actually very, they're pretty good. It's a pretty good representation of the album. Most bands don't really do a good job at that, but this record is actually very good, but a lot of very catchy choruses. It's kind of like the songs build up, but I think the album's excellent, and maybe talk a little bit about it. It comes out September 5th, 2025, and man, it's
Thanks.
27 years, man, you've been doing this with this band. And talk about your new record, man. Just let's get it out there, your impressions of it, and tell people all about it.
27 with Primal Fear and 45 I'm still doing this, so I'm wondering somehow. Yeah, anyway, thank you for your words again, Tony, and what you did on socials the day before.
Mm-hmm.
And the new album, we had a pool of so many songs again, so we picked, in our opinion, the creme de la creme out of it. Mm-hmm. And you're right. I mean, whenever we write, we want to be melodic. Because for us, Primal Fear is a melodical, and combined with power metal guitars and rhythms, is a power metal thing to do. That's what we love, what comes from our blood. We don't have to pretend to do something. It's just how we are. From the beginning of, since 1997, since we wrote until now, we have this red line of having some catchy melodies, right? And that's what we wanted to continue here and there. And of course, we had our albums like New Religion and Seven Seas, where we tried out different things here and there, but still kept our style, our Primal Fear style, heavy metal, in terms of heaviness and melodies. So, and still we are checking out stuff and trying out stuff. Mm-hmm. So as I've said, we had a pool of 25 songs and picked, in our opinion, the best ones. Everybody was invited to write. So in the end, it turned out that this is Magnus, Mat, and me who wrote for the new album, because you know what happened. Maybe that's a later question.
Yeah, sure.
So, and then, we are really happy that we are about to release it in September. But you know how it is nowadays. Everybody is going piece by piece, step by step, throwing candy out until the album will be out. And this is combined with videos. It was the studio recording for Far Away, which was just a cam recording, and then the pro ones with the Hunter, and Tears of Fire is going to be released soon as well in 3-4 weeks. Yeah. So that's what you do nowadays.
Yeah, you have the much larger, the promotion aspect of it has definitely changed, because I was saying this to somebody the other day. I went on a podcast, we were talking about this, but when Primal, we were talking about albums I was looking forward to, and I thought to myself, I ended up getting into this band as a young adult, and that was right. Your debut album came out right as my show started, so it's kind of like you watch how the whole thing has evolved. And, You've been one thing about Primal Fear that I've always said is that you've been a very consistent band,
Mhm.
in what you've done, and what has kept that consistency up. Because you and Matt obviously have had a great, friendship, working relationship, but it takes a lot to remain consistent and stick around doing this. And what is, why have you been such a consistent band, and what's led to that?
First of all, it comes from the heart. I mean, what Matt and I do comes from the
Mhm.
heart, and we want to do it in a professional way. And this consistency, staying focused, and not to do filler songs or throw out, which we are not convinced with, is our way to work, because that's how we also value the fans. We don't want to throw out garbage. I mean, nobody wants that, but you know what I mean. So
Mhm.
we always focus to have a bunch of good songs together, and that was from the beginning. And even when the times when I was still working, which is not so long ago, like 15 years ago, I still was an employee of a factory. Well, let's say 20 years almost. So, and even there, it was always important for us to deliver good albums and do good shows, which was not so easy if you do two jobs, as you know what I'm talking about.
I know
So,
exactly what you're talking
yeah.
about.
So, but it was always our motor and our motivation to deliver the goods.
Yeah. Yeah. So one of the I haven't said this yet, but one of the best aspects of this record, and the reason that I said the singles that you put out are a really good indicator of what the album sounds like. Listening to the record, I've only had the record a couple days, but any of these songs really would have made a good single. And I cannot say that about a lot of records that get sent to me. Was it difficult to pick those songs, and why did you pick these two tracks,
Yes,
The
I can
Hunter and,
say.
and Far Away?
Yeah, I can say it was not easy to pick singles, like you said.
Hmm.
First of all, we had also another title. So the first idea for title would be Destroyer, for instance. But then we
Yeah,
thought, no, let's be a little bit more positive. So we just said, let's do another name, which is not a song on the album. And it's dominating. It's like the eagle is dominating the sky and everything. Coming back to your question about the singles, yeah, I mean, it was really hard, but in the end, we want to show that we are Primal Fear with the first release, Far Away. I mean, this is typical.
yeah,
You have the twin guitars, the twin solos, you have the fast rhythm, and you have the melodic vocals. That's what we did in the year of 2000, for instance, with Nuclear Fire.
yeah,
And in our opinion, that was a good way to open first door for this album and release it to the world.
yeah.
And then we thought about this Hunter thing is a little bit more melodic to Far Away compared to Far Away. We thought it's also a strong statement to go out there and show that we still have the riffy guitars as well. And as you heard the album, there's so much more on it. And it's
Yeah.
always tough if people judge the first songs. Oh, this is not going to be, if you don't hit their nerve or whatever you want to call it. We hit a lot of good nerves to say that there's so many good comments about it. But there's always people out there who are not happy with something. But I would really suggest to listen to the whole album and then make your opinion about it, which is absolutely fine with us if you have your opinion, of course.
Yeah. Well, I think that, there's albums I'm listening to right now. I just commented on a few of them, that, sometimes the singles, sometimes bands miss on it. I think they miss a little bit more than they hit on the singles, but I think you picked the right ones. I mean, like The Hunter, for example, I mean, that's the first song in the album. I think that, it's got a great chorus. There's a song on the record, that had a chorus part that really caught me. And it's a song called I Am the Primal Fear. And that song is actually probably one of my favorite songs you guys have ever done.
Wow, thank you.
Yeah, I mean, seriously. And, there's a lot. I always tell everybody, you got to give the album a chance, because sometimes singles may not, you have to put out the singles the way that things are done now. I mean, you're putting out 4 songs, 3 to 4 songs typically leading up to the release date. And I think you guys picked 2 pretty solid tracks for that, though. I think most of the reception was pretty positive that I saw. There weren't a lot of crazy
True.
comments, but
I mean, you always have these hardcore, fast, speedy heavy metal guys who, this is,
yeah,
itchy people are everywhere. Let's say it's 5%. So we're still good with 95.
no,
And like you say, I Am the Primal Fear. We keep this jewels somehow for the release September 5th. There has to be something left, right? So,
well, no, I got you. The other song I really liked and I thought it was cool was "The Dead Don't Die." That's towards the end of the album, and then the last song, a tune I won't forget, which is a tune I won't forget. Just want to kind of put that out there. It's a pretty interesting title for a last track on an album, because realistically, I like the song and I won't forget it. So there's cool. That.
This is it's a homage of something like you grew up on metal, and this is always attached to a certain era of your life. And that's why you always, when you hear a tune, this is attached to a time, to a certain timeline. And that's reminding you of good or bad things, which is hopefully only good things.
It is good things. Well, again, it's interesting you say that because I went back and listened to the first album, and that was, I was probably 19 when it came out, and I was just starting the show on the radio. And I go back to that record, and I have a lot of memories about that. I remember when Jaws of Death was being promoted. I remember when Nuclear Fire was being promoted. Black Sun. I mean, all of these records that really, it's hard to believe that much time has passed, and it's crazy. I remember going out and buying, Heading for Tomorrow, right?
Yeah, I can tell that my beer went great, so maybe that's the only point where I see the time's passing fast.
Right. Absolutely. Well, so you talked about doing this for 45 years. Obviously you were in Gamma Ray before this. You had Tyrant Pace. You sang on some various projects. I know you did like a lot of the backing vocals on the first Scanner album. I mean, you did this for a very long time. And one of the things that I see you talk about periodically on social media, you really preach a lot of positivity, which is great. But one of the things you talk about is every now and then you bring up, hey, you go to the gym, you work out, and health is a very important thing for you. And I've always said, I see like you and I see Tim Ripper Owens going to the gym, sharing photos. And I have to think that, as a singer myself, that, doing what you're doing is really why you're still able to perform the way that you are. Because I listened to this record. I mean, you could still hit pretty much all the notes that you did before. I listened to Tim sing. He's still just as good as he was 25 years ago. Does that have a big, when you hit the gym, I've always, one of the things they say too is that it's one of the more, it puts you in a great mood. If you're down and bummed out or you're depressed about something, you go in there and you feel better coming out of it. How much has that contributed to your longevity in doing this?
To be very honest, Tony, I don't think it's not linked if you are working out to the singing. I mean, you listen to Freddie Mercury, for instance, or also many other things, Ronnie James Dio and so forth. They were, in my opinion, never worked out really. But what it does is a certain way of discipline. It's what kind of discipline and how much work you put into something you can really compare, right? So I mean, Tim, buddy, he's also working out. We talked about it, and what a nice guy he is anyway. So, and I'm really glad that he's doing this. I like to watch his stories where he's still at it and so forth. I like that. And yeah, it takes a lot of discipline to keep going because there's so many people start and then, oh my God, it's hard work. Yeah, of course it's hard work, and it's hard work to be a singer as well on tour, for instance. And this is that's what I always compare a little bit. The more work you put into, the more the result will be positive in the end, right?
Yeah. Well, you guys aren't exactly singing music that's easy on the body either. I mean, let's be honest. I mean, to do what you do on tour, and to sing the way that you guys sing, or a lot of heavy metal singers in general, I mean, it's not easy on the body. I mean, it's pretty. I always used to say that the touring is the hardest on the drummer and the singer.
Yeah.
That's pretty much where it goes. But you've done this at such a high level for a very, very long time, and I have to believe that you keeping your body, in shape and where it should be, it contributes to that.
It's about health. I mean,
Hmm.
I had my phase when I was in the 90s where I had my rock and roll era as well. So
Hmm.
I never say never to that I didn't do anything, but
Yeah.
you find out on your own if this is good for you or not. And in the long term, of course, it's not. So, and you've got your certain responsibility towards your children you have, your family, and of course towards your body. And
Yeah.
I want to live as long as I can because I love life.
Hmm.
I love
Sure.
to be on, love to be on that stage, and you can only do it if you're healthy, which is not intentionally always. Well, I have to be healthy. It's just it's a way of it's a standard of life. It's just given,
Sure. Yeah.
So
You talked about the early '90s, and you ended up playing on singing on the first three Gamma Ray albums. Kai
mhm.
had left Halloween. Talk about the '90s was kind of a dark era for this kind of music, and what was it like to get together? I'm sure you probably knew Kai Hansen probably earlier than that, but
Yeah.
what ended up prompting you to end up singing in Gamma Ray? How did that whole thing come together, and what was that experience like coming up through the early to mid '90s, singing with that band?
People know each other in the scene, Tony. So, of
Yeah.
course, when you hear Halloween, I heard Halloween without Michael when Kai sang
Hmm.
on the radio. Also, there was in the South German radio spot at Sunday night at 11, they were allowed to play heavy metal.
Okay.
So you'll listen to that stuff. And then, of course, we met on the road when Halloween was playing, when we were playing. And then you get in contact with people. And over the years, everybody is almost turning out to be buddies.
Hmm.
And the same thing happened back in the days when I was so happy about the success Halloween has had and have still. So then Michael joined in, and I heard something that they wanted to. Kai didn't want to be really a permanent singer anymore. I heard of that, and there were rumors that there was an application from my side. It was not. It was just heard. They heard my name as well, and they might have negotiated if they want to have me or not. And they asked, and I was still in Tire and Pace back in the days, and you know how it is as a kid starting to make music as a 17, 18 young, 16, 17 young boy. I could
Yeah.
say you want to stick to your buddies and make music with them. So anyway, then it turned out that Kai left Halloween, but before that, I already have somehow he has produced a band from Hamburg, and they didn't have a singer, and he invited me to sing that demo. That's how we got in touch more studio wise, working wise.
Yeah.
Everything on tape machine. So, and then we got to know each other more personally. And then he left Halloween, and then he had me in mind, and I had in mind, why? Oh, yeah, maybe we can do something together. And that's exactly what happened.
Yeah.
Apologize and apology. And then I drove to Hamburg, and we had this conversation. The first rehearsals, he had some songs together like Money and Heading for Tomorrow and so forth. And we recorded that demo. And then he had a deal anyway. We recorded it for the first album. So that's how it happened.
Yeah.
I'm so grateful for that time too. I learned so much from Kai as well.
Yeah.
Not only in the studio, also on the road. And it was the first time for me to go to Japan, to play all over Europe. And I never forget these kind of things because some people forget where they come from and who they are, who they should thank a little bit more to be there where you are. Of course, everybody has his own talent and everybody can do whatever he is able to do with his talent, but you still have this combination of people sometimes where you are being shipped to the next level. And that was Kai. I learned so many things, so
Yeah.
I'm grateful forever.
You went and actually sang a gig with them, like not long ago, an anniversary gig. What was that like? Going back and it had probably been ages since you sang any of those tracks. So
Yeah.
what was that?
it was 2014, before that pandemic shit. We
Mhm.
were already, they were in Munich, and I said, they called me up, why don't you just come by? And I said, yeah, why not? And then we did One with the World together, and Heading for Tomorrow. That was the first thing where Frank was already in the band, which is also a great singer, Frank Beck.
Mhm.
And then we had a good time again. And I was in a good mood, and I had one glass of red wine too much. So I was still on the bus and said, guys, I stay on the bus and drive with you to Czech Republic and do another show there. And then I drove home by train the next day. But that was great, yeah. And then
Yeah.
the idea came up, why don't we do this again several occasions here and there as a candy for the fans, and also as for our pleasure in the end. And that's what we did then in the pandemic time. We did this streaming show,
Sure.
which of course we prepared a little bit more with rehearsals and so forth and so forth. Yes.
Yep. 2014, when you went and sang with them, did you already still remember the lyrics? I mean, did you just walk up there and sing One with the World?
You'll listen to it once again, of course, 2 or 3 times. But Tony, it is really like it is. The songs you had in the past is so easy to remember.
Yeah.
Which is making it harder for me is the new songs. I remember singing songs in the studio, and then it wasn't right there. And
Yeah.
nowadays, if you sing songs in the studio, you have to listen over and over again because the brain is also having a little bit more holes.
Yeah.
Or it's not so easy anymore to remember stuff. But hey, we are pros, we have to. And once in a while, I would love to have a sheet or a teleprompter as well when you're missing the vocals out. But I'm trying to be focused and also there be professional and try to remember the lyrics.
No, I got you. Well, no, I understand. I understand. How that can work. With the gamma ray stuff, I'm sure you sang those tracks so many times that they're just kind of embedded in you. And you just it's not hard to remember.
Exactly.
You go up on stage and you're just
when you do this an entire tour, like 30 or 50 shows.
Yeah,
it's there.
So let's talk about the lineup change you had. Obviously, you have a couple new guitar players, and you had some people depart the band pretty much all at once. And I've always said that sometimes lineup changes can be a breath of fresh air as well. In the songwriting department. Obviously, Magnus Carlsen, I mean, phenomenal songwriter. What was it like to get him, in the band, and obviously your other guitar player, Thalia? Like, what was it like to get them in, and what really prompted you guys to invite them into the band?
Magnus was always there, Tony. He was always in the background writing, and he just couldn't go on tour because his wife has a good job and responsible job, and he had to stay at home with the kids. But there was now the time came where the kids are grown up, of course, and he wanted to come back, and we thought about a 3-piece, and that was always somehow not working because of several things.
Mm-hmm.
And then Matt was so ill, as you remember, as you also know, that we just kept it like it was with a substitute on bass. Yeah, for the tour last year. And the change, well, it's a sad thing for me because I was in between. But you can see what is on my arm, and this is also on my heart. So I'm not the guy who's just leaving Primal Fear because if 2 guys can't get along with each other anymore. I thought it's such a positive thing, this band, and it would be a pity to just burst everything and cancel Primal Fear out.
Yeah.
And I'm sorry about personal things, and I'm sorry about relationships we had on the road last year. It wasn't a really good thing still. And I'm not the guy saying you're my buddy and the very next day you're my enemy,
Yeah.
But it came like it came. So there was a fight between 2 people. They couldn't get along anymore. So the other guys were loyal to one guy, and I was loyal to Primal Fear because I also like the way how we work. Everything is so professional, and it's exactly what I want to do with Matt and Magnus. And of course now with Andre and Talia as well.
Yeah.
That we just want to continue the good things, And there were certain other points which I didn't like anymore with the old constellation as well in terms of songwriting. Everybody was invited, but if you are invited and there are no ideas and then bitch about stuff which is already there, I think it's not a good way to work it out.
Right.
So there were several points, but I think the last things I told you would have been easy to work out. It's just one big thing which didn't work anymore, and that was not my decision in the end. But I stayed to my friend with Matt,
Mm-hmm.
and then we had to build everything around again. But to say, I mean, Andre already drummed the last tour because of the illness of Michael,
Yeah.
and he did a great job. So that was the easiest choice. And then, of course, Magnus was always there. And then we just needed to place Tom somehow because he wanted to stay with Alex and find his luck with him, with their kind of style they want to compose now. So I have to respect this. I don't want to bitch, and I
No.
don't want to say bad things because I'm not the guy washing bad laundry. I'm going to leave that to other person. They might do, because what I don't like in the end is the bitterness behind it when people start to invent stuff or find old stories and add something to it, which is harming my reputation in the end. It's not a nice style to do, so I keep away from that.
Yeah. Well, I don't know if you remember, when it was announced that they departed, there was a lot of there were a lot of negative comments toward it. I don't know if you remember what I had said about it, but
Absolutely. And I'm really
uh,
really thankful for that, because you said exactly the right thing. There have to be reasons, right?
yeah. Well, I've been around. If you know anything about my background, and I'm sure that you do, I've been around where I've watched this, and I've been around this kind of thing. And sometimes too, it just life circumstances change for people. You have a business relationship. Sometimes that business relationship goes bad, and many times you're still friends. There's really no bad blood from anybody. It just doesn't work out from that standpoint either. So I've seen this a lot, and knowing that you and Matt have been together throughout the entirety of this band, typically in pretty much any band that exists, the guys that have been there the longest are usually the ones that you have to make decisions to make sure the band continues on. And sometimes those decisions are both ways. You'll have I've seen people part ways in a good way. They just like, hey, I got this life circumstance. I have this opportunity, business opportunity. It's like, for example, one of the things that I noticed, positive things, is that Alex's other band, Voodoo Circle, I thought they put out their best album, and he was able to divert his energy into that a little bit more. So there's always reasons for that stuff. I always tell everybody that, what happens behind the scenes, to me, it's pointless to worry about it, and there's no mudslinging. There's no real bad blood or hostility. Like, yeah. I didn't, things don't work out. It happens.
I'm just wondering what people are guessing sometimes, I mean, totally stupid stuff like it would be a money thing or something. They were really getting, if anybody would have been not happy with what they get, everybody was always invited to talk about it. Mm-hmm. Everybody was always invited to join the company. Matt and I are a company. Yeah. So they were always invited to join and take responsibility, but that's the word, responsibility. So they didn't want to take that. So, and then we offer stuff, and they were always able to talk about anything. And if people come up with a rumor that it was a money thing, that's totally nonsense, Mm-hmm. So, no.
Well, I mean,
and if people come up that they were not invited to write songs, no. Everybody was always invited to write songs. I know it was not hard, not easy when we were touring the last year, and then of course Matt and Magnus were able to work more because we were touring. But I mean, I also was touring, and I also had ideas, So if you are inviting a guitarist who lives 20 minutes away from my house, if you're inviting him to my house to write songs, and if you say him, hey, I have melodies in mind, I need a good guitarist, which is you. And he never comes, or if you invite him to give his ideas and work together on it, he never comes. It's not my fault,
Yeah. Well, as I said, music is a business, bands are a business. It's just like working for a company and you have coworkers. I mean, people part ways. I mean, it's one of those things, and that's the best way to really look at it. I mean, I've talked about people that have left bands, and I've watched circumstances, I can tell you, that have been very, very bad, where people had to be fired in the past. I've watched people just, they're like, hey, this isn't for me. I have this going on in my life. It's going to interfere with touring. People are still friends. It's just it happens, and
That's true. Yeah.
And so I think people speculate way too much on what goes on with a lot of this stuff, because, again, I think people were freaking out because so many people had left, right? And I think
it made a bad picture. Sorry for interrupting you. It looked like I'm an asshole, right?
Yeah.
Four members. I mean, Alex was never, the bass player was never a fixed member, but I like him personally. I mean, still, it's hard now because some gossip's going on, which is really getting too much. But it was hard for me. And then the statement was 4 people are leaving, which was also not true. One guy was fired, and 2 were loyal to one guy, and the other one was never a fixed member. So many things, and this whole cluster looks like, well, Ralf Scheepers must be a really asshole because 4 guys are leaving, and I was not even the guy. What's it all about? Was it? That's what. That was hard for me. I was sleepless nights and weeks for me as well. Believe me.
Oh no, I got you. Well, they always point to the people that are still in the band. I mean, that's every band. I watched. I don't remember which band it was now. It was recent. People pointing the fingers at stuff. Now, not everybody. Again, a lot of people want to keep that kind of. They just. It's one of those things where you have to. People are going to point the finger. To me, my thing is, what is the musical output like? Because when you have a lineup change, people are automatically going to get, this impression. They automatically want to write a band off because they without hearing any music.
Exactly.
It happens. So
but now you hear, Tony, sorry for interrupting again. Now you hear that the style of Primal Fear, who's responsible for this, right? So, and once again, I can only repeat myself. Everybody was always invited to write. So, and if we have an album coming out like Domination now, and it's such a strong album as, thankfully you think the same, then you hear that nothing has really changed with the music, even getting better somehow, so.
Yeah, so it's really good. I think when people hear the record, it changes their mind. I was talking about, if you ever watch some of my posts, I was talking about singers that people may not have heard of that join a band, and automatically everyone says, "Oh my God, the band's gonna suck. They're never gonna fill the shoes of this person." Then the single comes out, or they see the live show, for example, and all of a sudden it's like everybody does a 180, and turns around and realizes, oh, it's really good.
Not everybody, because as a singer is always so hard to replace, and that's the reason why I also somehow lucky that it never turned out to be Judas Priest back in the days, because you could never replace the metal god.
No, not at all,
unless you're Tim Owens. But anyway, it's still different. Don't want to. That's not my kind of business. But anyway, you know what I mean. It's always hard to replace the singer, because the original singer with the hits, that's the color of voice you're listening to, and that's not so easy. You can do the best job in the world, even singing better songs here and there, but you never will be the original.
Yeah, I'll tell you. I'll be honest with you. Tim lives 40 minutes from me. I mean, he's from my area and here in Ohio. And I'll be honest with you. I was listening to one of the live albums. I think it was Live in London with him, and I thought he did a spectacular job. But the rumor was Ralf Scheepers might get that gig. What's the story behind that? Did you audition for them, or?
It's so long ago. It's not even worth to talk about it anymore, Tony. In the end, I didn't even audition. I sent my tapes. They liked it. Then Glenn Tipton did his solo album back in the days. It took years.
Yeah, Baptized by Fire.
And I was so honest to say to Gamma Ray, and that, of course, that was a point which was not so lucky in the end. Then several points occurred as well back in the days that I got out of Gamma Ray then. Anyway, but everybody's happy now. That's the most important thing.
Yeah.
I mean, we have Tim doing an amazing job with KK now. We have Priest with Rob back. This is, for the fans, the best thing in the world, right? So
Yeah.
it's not none of my business at all, you know.
Yeah.
So, but people are asking all the time, and of course, I'm answering. I'm not coming up with this.
No, it's, you know, as a singer, when you look at a guy like Rob Halford, you know, and you obviously you came up in the 80s. What kind, you know, Rob's in his 70s. You know, it's crazy to think he's that old, but what kind of impact did a guy like that, Rob Halford, you know, guys like Dio and Bruce Dickinson, you know, what impact did they have, any influence on you, and what impact for you on the metal scene? I mean, what was it like coming up in that era with those guys in their prime back then?
They did not influence me at all. Come on, I mean, you know, new wave of British heavy metal. How can you not be influenced by Ronnie James Dio, Bruce Dickinson, Jeff Tate, Rob Halford?
Mm-hmm.
You know, as a singer. But it's a certain style, Tony. It's a certain style, and if you're going into belting, Dio never did this kind of belting. He always had a high chest voice,
Mm-hmm.
but the belting stuff is linked to Jeff, Tim, Rob. It's the high register which is belted with a lot of pressure.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the reason why this certain technique really is getting on you when you get older, and you have to really work with it. And that's why, in my opinion, Rob still does an amazing job. He came back out of a phase where it didn't work so well for him, and now it's just a miracle that this guy does what he does. I mean, I watched the show 2 weeks ago in Stuttgart, and was just, my goodness, how can you still do that? That's great. Really, I raised my non-existent hat. Really.
And I think the last Priest album was actually very good. I think his performance in the studio was fantastic. You know, so you know that could be you, man. When you're in your 70s, man, I could see you still going out there and
hopefully. Never say never. I don't know. Knock on wood that it will stay that way, because, to be honest, I feel a change, and you really have to work on it.
Yeah. Yeah, well, I think you could stick around for a little while. You know, as Willie Nelson said, if you slow down, you go down, right? So
True.
You're not slowing down at any point, and
No.
you know, so that we have that there. I want to also talk about another thing that you preached about, not preached about, but you know, you've talked about, and I see this on your social media posts, and it's something that I think is very good, which is not as much music related, but you always post about, you know, we live in a very negative world, right? A very conflicted world, but you always post about, you know, being positive and actually waking up and doing something positive in life. And I think that that's a message that a lot of people don't really say that, you know, all too much. And but I've seen a lot of those posts, and what's inspired you to continue to do that, you know, on your actual social media page, your personal one, actually?
That's the engine in the end, to the motor which keeps you going. The last rope you want to grab to survive. If there's no positivity anymore, you have no chance. I mean, it's a fucking stupid world right now, crazy world what's going on.
Yeah.
If you say, well, I quit anyway because the world is crazy, is also not a good way to live. And
right.
I always want to look to the future and not to the past. I mean, or we're living in the right now, and we're looking ahead into the future. Of course, you remember the past, but I'm always remembering good things. So I like to remember good things, right? So that's the positivity I want to keep for myself, to continue doing what I do. And this is no matter what you do, no matter which genre, which work you do, whatever you do in life, keep being positive, you know.
Yeah.
So it's easy to say. I mean, I know if you got a lot of problems going on, and I'm not the guy not having no problems. So that would be a lie too. But let's just present the good things. Why being bitching and whining on social media makes no sense at all.
Yeah. Well, speaking of positivity, I want to say that the record label you're on, I think, does a pretty good job.
Yeah.
You know, they've really embracing social media a lot more. You know, the young lady that does a lot of the publicity, the the publicists you have here in the States, actually. But I really, even all of the, other labels that are associated with RPM, Perception, Roar, all of them are very interactive, but they're very, very positive in promoting the bands. And I'll be honest with you, I've dealt with this for almost 30 years, and I think they've done a great job. How do you feel? What's it like for you feeling, how do you feel about how they've promoted the band? Because I can tell you that Primal Fear over the years has not exactly, you've had great times where, the publicity was great. There were times where, I thought the people promoting you really underperformed. But I feel like, when I listen to this album, like we just talked about positivity, I just feel that's the one thing I think I like about the album. It's easy to listen to because I think it's very positive, but the label is really doing a great job and really going out of their way to promote you guys more than I've seen in quite a long time from a lot of other people.
If you have a bunch of people who are also loving the genre, it makes it much more easier. And of course, we have our meetings, so we talk about things, and we are also pushing people. But they love to do what they do. It's just a matter of, how they combine things in terms of you got to plan things and so forth. And I know they have not only us as a band, so they have to, of course, plan things and have to schedule stuff. Yeah. So anyway, so that exactly what you say. We're happy now where we are, and people from the company are our friends as well, and this helps a lot. I mean, in the past we had some people more far away. That's why we always love to have people which are very close, living close, where you can go, where you can drive for a meeting. It's not always done with a Zoom meeting or Skype meeting in the past. It's all you have to meet in person. It's a total different thing to talk about things eye to eye and not camera to loudspeaker.
Correct. Yeah.
And that's what we still do. And they learn from us because we're old farts. And we learn from them. So it's give and take in the end.
Well, you have some of the old staff from Nuclear Blast when you started. I mean, Matt worked for them, but you also have some people there that working at the European portion of the label that were with Nuclear Blast when you guys first started. So you have those long relationships there. I just think that a lot of what's going on with the record label, in general, with a lot of the bands, and I know a lot of bands I've known for years are on that label now, and I just feel this very positive push that hasn't happened for you guys all the time.
True. So we can feel it too. So now we're starting to do the interviews. We have this, like you say, the young lady working for us, scheduling it, giving us hell, which is good because promotion is always good. So it's a good combination to the new album.
Yeah. So on a different topic, obviously, the brand of power metal that you guys do, it's always had a very strong presence in Japan, right? I mean, Japan has always been like that very consistent market, and in Europe as well. But for whatever reason, and I've never understood this, in the United States, just in general, when I talk about power metal, I'm talking about you guys, bands like Halloween, bands like, maybe Blind Guardian, Gamma Ray, whatever. They've never caught on here like they did, like they have in Europe and, South America and stuff like that. Whereas at one point, the Scorpions made it big here. The, Accept always had a very big market here. But, why has it been difficult for bands that play your brand of music to really, do you think, to really kind of catch on and get a lot bigger here in the United States?
Well, Tony, time has changed as well, so, I mean, if we would be a band like Scorpions or the Accept and so forth in the 80s, maybe we would have been there much more times and more successful as well. Mm-hmm. It's also a matter of time, in my opinion. And the market has changed, as we all know. Spotify and TikTok and everything and all those names, changed a lot of things as well. Political stuff has changed a lot. It was always very hard for a band to come and play there. And we know that in America is a market where you have to come and play. Yeah. But when you go there and destroy yourself, not only financially, also in a biological way makes no sense at all, because one, you lose a lot of money before you touch American soil in terms of working visas. Then they want American people to work for us and not to bring our own people. Why do you bring your own people? You got to have American people work, which we totally understand. No worry.
Mm-hmm.
So, but the end is it's a lot of money we lose before we go there. And I know many bands still do it, but you have to really schedule tours like 3 months then. And this is just really very, very tough to handle and to schedule upfront in a business way, that you are coming home with a black zero, not even with money made. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You gotta pay. So you gotta pay so many taxes there. You gotta have a social security number. You gotta have those working visas, which costs a 5-digit number of money before you go there, and so forth. There's so many things, and then you negotiate, of course, and you think, and you're scheduling and planning. And if it doesn't make sense, it's not so easy, you know. And then you have also now a guitarist coming from Cuba, Italian Cuba, which is also maybe in America, with the embassy coming there at the border and so forth, is a risk to do as well.
Yeah.
Which I totally not get. But anyway, it's the way it is. We don't change this. And that's all these certain points. They don't make it easier in the end, Tony.
Yeah. Wow. I know all about bands trying to get social security numbers. That's a story I can tell you when we finish the interview. But I I'll give you a fun fact. I went and looked up, the Scorpions, and they had, I think when they signed their major label deal, I think it was like just past the post Uli Roth days. It took like 5 albums for them. I think it was like 4 or 5 albums and a lot of money for them to have an album like Love at First Sting, hit the charts the way that it did. And it's always been difficult for bands just from Central Europe. It's always been because I think, you talk about times and how things have changed. Most of the money and the backing back then was in the UK and the US. You had like your John Kolodner's and a lot of these, EMI, and then you had, David Geffen. I mean, so you had all of these big backers back then. That's where most of the money was, backing music. And, bands from Germany or Central Europe for that matter, it just wasn't something that was easy for people to do. Right. Yeah. I mean, you had to release, 3 or 4 records before they probably even broke even.
Yeah, we come back to the point with the consistency in the end. I mean, we've been there, and we did several stuff, and we know how it is, and we were there 4 weeks, which is too short for the entire country.
Yeah.
And in the end, you're still totally dead and almost bankrupt.
Yeah. No, I get it. Yeah. Well, I got to tell you, man, I've always had a fondness for you and this band and how good you guys have been. And I always reminisce and go back to the first interview I ever did. And we talked about music for probably 15 minutes. And we talked about Formula One racing for like another 45. It was a pretty fun.
Now we almost have an hour already again.
That's right. Well, it's funny because I remember that was back when you had the Flying Finn versus Schumacher. And then I think Schumacher broke his leg that year. I don't remember what. Yeah, that was when he had that. But I remember we were talking about that. And I'll tell you what, that song, Formula One on the first record, still one of my favorite songs you guys ever recorded. Just not just the lyrics and what it's about, but the just the way it's written. Is really cool. So I still
know where it comes from.
I do, but I always want to tell you, and I told this to a couple of other people I just spoke to recently. You were one of the first bands I ever had on my show. I mean, I go back and back then, I go back to it was about 20 or 25 bands and musicians that I still will talk to this day. But you were one of the first 20 or 25 people that really influenced me to keep doing this to this day. So I just think back at that interview, and it was pretty funny because we were talking about all these different drivers and race teams, and I'm like, man, at some point I'll put that up. It was actually really good because we were going through like an analysis of like, is McLaren going to win? Is it going to be Ferrari? We were going through that whole thing back then, but it was cool, man. And I've always appreciated you and just the whole positivity aspect of everything that you do, especially today in a very negative world. When I see a post like that, I do appreciate the fact that you're doing that because you do have a following, you do have an influence on people, and you're using it to kind of spread a positive message for people.
Yeah, thank you. I mean, I can just give it right back to you, Tony. You are down to earth guy. I mean, we always love to talk to each other, and you have this certain really positive respect. I don't know how to explain, because you always understand things without having your implanted opinion or what. Of course, everybody has his opinion, but it's hard to explain for me that I totally get from your writing on socials as well, and from your stuff you say on your show, that you are a grounded person and positive and a good guy.
Well,
thank you for everything, what you've done for us and what you still do.
Yeah. Well, I've had some good mentors when it comes to that. So, and people that I've known over the years. So, but anyhow, man, I got to tell you, we'll end it off here in a minute. But I got to tell you, I think the album is fantastic. I think if I were to describe it, it is definitely very, very, an album that's has a lot of songs with some very catchy choruses. And,
yes.
I think people are going to dig it. So
thank you so much.
With that said, any last words to say to the fans of the band, and what can they look forward to? You got a lot of tour dates obviously coming up, in the fall. What can they look forward to for this upcoming tour and this album?
Yeah, we're gonna do new songs, of course. We're gonna play old songs we never played. We have a new lineup, so it's an eye catcher, as you can tell. And it's just, we're really looking forward. Again, everybody says that all the time, but again, I have to say it's different again this time, and it's giving some fresh wind, and people can really look forward to see the show. We are working on it right now already for the tour in fall, to have good ideas and also stage set and so forth, and working on the set list. So we're really busy on that, and I want to say thank you for your support out there, who always, the people who always stick to Primal Fear, because what we deliver somehow, and we do it in a very honest way, that we write music which comes from our heart, from our blood. And so that's the reason why I'm so grateful that you are still there with us, and that you're out there and we see us out there. Okay.
Always, man. Like I said, it's refreshing to see people like you out there in the scene. As you know, the music business is not the most positive of things in a lot of ways, but I would say that you're definitely one of the people that, in my opinion, is always kind of one of the more positive forces in it, because as well as I do, that it can be a very brutal business to be a part of. So,
yes.
Yeah. All right. Well, hey,
Tony,
man.
thank you so much.
Hey, everybody. Tony here from the Metal Command podcast. Again, I appreciate your support. Since 1998, I have hosted this show in one form or another, starting off in radio and now in the podcast format. Again, thanks for watching. And if you like what you see and hear on this show, by all means, please hit the subscribe button, hit the little bell to be notified anytime I do post a video. And if you see this program on any other form of social media, please give me a follow there. Again, I always appreciate your support.